Our lives are made up of transitions. Some of them go by with hardly a notice, like our birthdays or maybe an anniversary. But some of them have much more impact on our lives, for they mark a significant moment when the old is past and the new is yet to begin. Things like getting a driver's license, turning 18, graduating from high school, leaving home, going off to college, turning 21, getting that first job, getting married, having children, perhaps changing jobs, moving across the country, experiencing a significant illness or an accident, having a marriage fail or relationship come to an end. It may be retirement. It may be the birth of a grandchild. It may be moving once again. It may be experiencing the death of a loved one, a grandparent, a parent, a spouse, a child. All of these mark significant moments in our lives when the way things used to be can no longer be the way they will be. We experience them not only individually, but we sometimes experience times of transition corporately. Things like the death of John F. Kennedy, the Civil Rights Movement, the Vietnam War, 9/11, Katrina, COVID-19. These events have significant impact on our lives collectively as a people, and they mark a new way, a new beginning, a new challenge. They are not times that we always embrace because they are filled with uncertainty, confusion, and chaos. We mark one of those moments in the Hebrew Scriptures as we move from Genesis to Exodus. We almost don't notice it because it is highlighted with just one sentence. There was a Pharaoh in Egypt that did not know Joseph. That's it. But in that line, we are told that the story has been forgotten. The story of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Joseph. They have failed to remember. And so this Pharaoh in Egypt treats the refugees from Palestine, God's people, with oppression and servitude. And when he can no longer control their population, he turns to genocide. It is a time of great challenge for the Hebrew people. It is interesting that this particular material in the Hebrew Scriptures is gathered together and written down in a time of transition centuries later. It is the time of exile. It is a time where they find themselves once again in a foreign land, confused and uncertain about their future. And what they do is to remember the story. Just as Pharaoh had forgotten the story, they are reminded to remember. And what they remember in their story of God's dealing with them as a people was that there was another time when they were in such dire straits, and that God sent them a deliverer, Moses. And what happens then is they remember that story as they began to anticipate God acting in a similar fashion in their time in the present. And so they began to look for the Messiah, the deliverer, like Moses. And they find in that a sense of hope, a sense of comfort. And the prophets pick up the images of exile, of flowers blooming in the desert, of roads leading back to the promised land. It is not surprising then that when Matthew writes his gospel, the story of Jesus, As he addresses his Jewish brothers and sisters, he finds similar images to talk about Jesus' life and ministry as a new Moses, a new deliverer, a Messiah. We find ourselves today in the midst of a great transition, collectively, globally. COVID-19 will change the way we live together, even as it already has had great impact on our lives. We don't know what the future will bring for us, politically, economically, socially, educationally, religiously. Everything seems to be up in the air. We're grasping at straws. We're trying to keep things as normal as possible, even though we know that things will never be the same. We can take a clue from our Jewish brothers and sisters that one of the things we may well do in this time is to remember our story. Where have we been in these times before, both collectively and individually? And where has God been present in the midst of those times of transition and chaos and confusion? And how has God acted, bringing us through those times into a new way of life? One of the things that happened in my relationship with God following the death of my father at 13 was that we entered into a period of time of intense and intimate conversation. Oh, they weren't always pretty, but they were intense and intimate. And I found myself in these days returning to that kind of conversation with God. Not really what I would call prayer, but more serious conversation. And in the midst of that, I have found comfort and hope. One of the other experiences that I had after my father died, and also as I experience other times of transition, is a question of identity. Who am I now? What does it mean to be me? What does it mean to be father, husband, spouse, grandfather? These have always been difficult times and difficult questions, primarily because I didn't know really who I was. That's one of the gifts that God gave me last year as He restored me to my biological mother. And that gift has served greatly to get me through these times. For in those moments of pondering who I am and where I go, I now have an anchor. I have a place to go, because I do know now who I am and why I am as crazy as I am, and why I have strength and will continue to have strength to get through this. She shares her faith with me, which has been an incredible gift, a story, a memory, a word of hope and comfort. In all these things, we find the hope as we navigate these times of transition, these difficult times. And so I encourage you to spend some time thinking about your story. And where has God been in these times before? And how did you recognize God's presence? And are there signs around you that say, ha ha, God has not abandoned me, and God will get me through this? O God, our help in ages past, our hope for years to come, our shelter from the stormy blast, and our eternal home. Time like an ever-rolling stream bears all our years away. They fly forgotten as a dream dies at the opening day. O God, our help in ages past, our hope for years to come. Still be our guard while troubles last, and our eternal home.